Hello and welcome back to the Atmosphere's Electric. There's Fran, I'm Rich. How are you, dude?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. You?
Yeah, man. Good. It's good to have some Premier League football back in our lives to talk about, both in terms of backwards and forwards. And it's been an eventful week, hasn't it, so far? There's definitely been a bit of a bang back with the Premier League football.
There's been a couple of shocks, been a couple of shocking refereeing decisions, VAR decisions, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, it's been nice to get it back. It's been quite boring for 2 weeks with international football, hasn't it? So, yeah, made a nice change of pace, bit of excitement. Although the league is very boring, you can't go up, can you? Title winners. The only thing we're looking at is top 4 or 5 now, aren't we? So it is quite a boring league, but it's far more entertaining than international football.
Yeah, spot on, summarised expertly as always. Yeah, down are down, winners are winners, and it's literally 2 to 7 are really where we're looking now, isn't it, in terms of who finishes where. But even that might become a bit irrelevant if we do get up to 11 places in Europe. So yeah, it could be a little bit of a dull end to season with pockets of excitement and talking points. And of course, one of those talking points was, let's just say, the very strange decision not to send James Tarkowski off last night. Now, I'll lay my cards on the table. I'm a little bit old school in the sense that I've always been a believer in if you get the ball first, that should be taken into consideration. So just because I've always been a believer that, just because that's how I grew up, even I, who am very anti that was a follow through meant to take the player out. Wasn't that? There was no accident in that. That was absolutely. I've never seen a player clear a ball and follow through like that before.
So I agree entirely with your first part of the statement, being old school. I was a defender. I was always told to tackle, win the ball, win the man. But that was going above and beyond the threshold. That was actually one of the words that they used, that the force was below the threshold. He's so fortunate, McAllister, that is, to not have had his leg broken. Like, that was such a dangerous tackle. The commentators said red card. Everyone around the world said red card, except the only people that mattered, the referee and the VAR. My question is, what on earth are they being taught, trained? Like, it's especially after the news, the revelation that came out is that they're on over 200 grand a year, officials. Like, they're very highly paid people. Now, granted, that's not the same level as some of the footballers being paid 200 grand a week, but they're highly paid professionals who should be highly skilled. And some of the decisions that I'm seeing, we'll probably go on to the offside in a second. It's baffling. They're making mistake after mistake. They've got technology to help them. I honestly don't know where we go from here, because I think we've got, compared to the standard of the Premier League, the worst officials in the world. Like, you might have the worse officials, say, in Colombia, but the standard of the league is far below the Premier League. But for the level of the Premier League, I think we've got the worst officials in the world.
So yeah, talking about referees, and obviously I know the PG Mello will come out this morning and apologise, saying that they do now believe that it should have been a red card. Do you think that they took into account how early in the game it was? I'm not saying they should have, by the way, but do you think that, because I can't think of any other logical reason why you didn't send the player off other than you didn't want to ruin the game? Well, I think it was the 11th or 12th minute, something like that, but it was very, very early, wasn't it?
It was early. I think sometimes that does have to be taken into account, but when we're going down the route of by the letter of the law, the timing shouldn't come into it, should it, if we're going down the route of by the letter of the law? If we were going down the route of common sense, I think it should go into it. But then from a common sense perspective, you've got to look at the force that he's gone into tackle, because the ball was there to be won, but McAllister didn't attempt to tackle the ball. He was just sort of around the area of the ball. So to go through the ball like that and actually go into McAllister, it was baffling. So yeah, I mean, I'm a bit unsure, really. It depends on the route that the officials are trying to take them down, I would say. And to me, I'd go down common sense, but that seems to have long gone with the generation of people we're bringing through.
And so later in the game, obviously Tarkowski's still on the pitch, and actually he was involved in the other controversial kind of incident where Luis Diaz was stood in an offside position. Tarkowski tries to cut the ball off that was played to him, makes a bit of a hash of it, and 3 seconds later the ball's in the back of the Everton goal. Now, Arne Slot has come out and said that he understands that is the rule, and he's obviously grateful of the application but doesn't like it. I mean, when you saw it, did you think that Luis Diaz was interfering with play? Because if he's not widely grabbed but he's passing the ball, and Tarkowski tried to cut the pass off to Luis Diaz, even if he is, I don't know, it's grey area.
So I would say I watched it live. I first of all didn't even clock that he was offside. So live, I didn't notice it. when they showed it back on a replay, and especially when you see the still, it makes it look worse. So I think live probably means it's a goal. But when you see it slow down and then you understand what's happened, I can understand why Everton would be aggrieved. However, again, letter of the law, he didn't move. So I can see both sides of it.
Yeah.
For me, again, the rule just needs changing just to make it black or white. If you're standing in an offside position, regardless of whether you go for the ball, you're offside. Because then there's no ambiguity, there's no arguments. Like all I've seen on social media is the tackle and the offside now, and complaining. And loads of people are going, "Oh, Liverpool have been stitched up. It's all Liverpool are walking the league. They're getting all these decisions." That's just completely taken away from the job that Slot's done. And I just don't. We've always spoken about referees, but it was you spoke about the referees in the pub after the game, and it was done, wasn't it? Now with the VAR, with it slowed down, it becomes a talking point for days, weeks. Like I can still remember that Spurs Liverpool game. That's still spoken about, and that's what 2 years ago. Like, I just think the rules need changing to be more black and white. And if you are standing in offside position, that's your own fault.
Yes, I think it was Shankly, wasn't it? Said that if you're not interfering, play what you're doing on the pitch, and yeah, it's like I say, people are. Your point about kind of clinging on to things, people are way too sensitive now about football. You can't say anything about another team without somebody getting upset about it. We all need to have a long, hard look at how serious we're taking football, when there's a load of other stuff, important stuff going on in the world that we just sort of turn a blind eye to. But I suppose it's what we're here talking about football for, right? And so obviously, every week we have a go at some predictions, and our bankers definitely didn't help us out last week or this week, did they? But both of them somehow managing to not win what looked on paper very easy games, albeit probably too late for both of the teams to make an impact on their fate for next season.
Well, Southampton are down, I think, if they lose next week. And, well, are they playing Wolves? Ipswich are. I think if Wolves win and Southampton lose, they're officially down. I think that will be, even Derby, who had the record points low total, I think it would be the earliest a team has ever been relegated. So, I mean, that's motivation for them, absolutely, isn't it? So, I mean, they're already down. But Ipswich had to win that game because obviously Wolves did. And if then they go and beat Wolves in the next game, it's on, isn't it? To be fair, you'd say that it would be great if they do beat them. I really am rooting for them because I want a bit more entertainment in the league. I want to see what happens. But I think it's going to be very tough for them to stay in the league. It's still a huge gap to claw back, isn't it? So, I mean, that for me is game of the game week.
Yeah, well, let's do that. Let's go through it as we do. And obviously, there are some, I think, difficult games to predict this week. And actually,
tough game week. This is, I think.
Yeah, I think
if you predict 7, you've done it very, very well.
Well, I was going to say 6. I mean, genuinely, there was. I've actually put. I don't tend to put too many draws down when we do this. I've got at least 3 draws, but I can see there being 5 or 6. I can see. Anyway, let's get into it because that's what it's all about. And obviously, we start at 12:30 at Goodison Park. We can say that for a little bit longer on TNT Sports. Everton host Arsenal. Obviously, Everton on the receiving end of that defeat against Liverpool. But having said that, I thought defensively they looked pretty sound. And actually, they had a goal marginally disallowed for offside, and Beto should have scored when he was cleared through on goal. So actually, I thought, although Everton weren't a constant threat, they had chances in the game to actually have a different outcome in that game. And I think defensively they look very, very solid, don't they?
Yes. Yeah, they do. Moyes he's given them a bit more licence going forward, hasn't he? As opposed to what Dyche did. But the defensive stability is still there. I really like Branthwaite. I know it sounds an obvious statement, but the more I see him, the more I think you are quality. The size of him, he's quick. I think just being left-footed as well just gives teams natural balance. Obviously, the size of him, he's good in the air. I think everything about him screams he's going to be a top-class centre-half, which is exactly, going back to the national team, what England need, especially a left-sided, left-footed defender. So the more I watch him, the more I'm impressed by him. And, Tarkowski he is what he is. He's not an elegant footballer. He's a defensively sound defender. And I think they make quite a nice pair and blend together quite nicely.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. I think, that they look like a big unit, don't they? The right back's 6'5", whatever, he's like huge. I thought even Mikalenko looked like he's had an improvement last night as well. He put a proper shift in as well, obviously coming back from injury. And I thought, like I said, they still have enough about them to potentially kind of hit teams on the break. And they obviously went there with a very specific game plan not to be opened up by Liverpool. And I think there will be a slightly different appearance in terms of how attacking Everton are at the weekend. Obviously, Iliman and Jai was back, came back on in the second half yesterday. So, actually, I think that Everton are in a pretty good spot. And interestingly, because obviously we talk about Njai coming back, Saka came back and scored almost with his first touch of coming back into football, and that's a massive relief for Arsenal, isn't it? And actually makes them look, at a time when they've got some big games coming up, a little bit more of a threat again, at least.
And Gabriel's just got injured, hasn't he? So,
Yes.
but I think the timing of him being injured is horrendous because they need all their players back for a full tilt of the Champions League. But having Saka back sort of softens that. And I mean, just the excitement around him coming back, I thought put a bit of a step into Arsenal. You know, they seemed a bit livelier. They knew that they had their talisman on the pitch. And like you said, him scoring is just going to boost his confidence as well. I'd be surprised to see him start, though. Like I've seen quite a few people saying they're putting him in the fantasy. I think it's a bit early for that. I think he probably will come off the bench again. But no, very good to have him back. He's exactly what Arsenal need, just a bit of creativity. And he just draws more players towards him, which creates space for the others.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that it was always going to be a tough ask to beat Real Madrid in the Champions League. Anyway, for me, it's now, if Gabriel can't make it, they've got some other players. Ben White, Tomiyasu and Calafiori's all out as well. I think, being honest with you, that's a step too far, but absolutely no disgrace getting knocked out of the Champions League by Real Madrid. Some very, very good teams over the years have managed to get past them. So, but in terms of on Saturday, I think for me personally, against Everton, I see this being a low scoring game. I see this being under 2.5 goals. I think very similar to last night, it's going to be, cagey, tough, and it's going to be a moment of magic or a mistake that's going to be the difference between the two teams.
Yeah, I think so. I can't really, again, even with Saka back, I just can't see where the goals come from with Arsenal. I know they've been scoring a bit more of late. I just can't see where the goals come from. I can't see Saka starting. So I think it'll probably end up, like you say, being low scoring, possibly towards Arsenal, with Saka coming on and creating some magic late on. I could see it being 0-0 at half time.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I think this could be a very sort of tight, like I said, it could be set. I think both teams are obviously very good at set pieces, and actually maybe they even cancel each other out. Actually, you never know. Like, it's either going to be a set piece or not. So yeah, I think an interesting start to the game. But I'm not expecting goals, but I am expecting a bit more of an old-fashioned blood and guts type of a game that you do tend to get at Goodison Park a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it would be quite a physical game. Everton will make it a physical game. It's whether Arsenal can stand up or not, because that's been their Achilles heel, hasn't it? I know they've got better over the years, but if they can stand up to that and get on the ball and dictate the ball, I think they will probably be victorious.
Victorious. Sorry. We moved to a derby that, again, obviously means a lot if you're one of the fans of either Palace or Brighton. Obviously, that's about 3 o'clock on Saturday. This is the sort of game actually I quite like to have. It's like the 5:30 kickoff on Saturday. I think it's quite a good game to watch as a neutral, but obviously they've gone for a different game this week. Now, this for me could be anything at any point to anybody. It could be 3-0 either way. It could be 0-0 either way. Both teams have been in blistering form and then getting some weird and wonderful results. Obviously, neither of them winning midweek. I don't even know where you start with what this game's going to end up as.
Yeah, I think you've summed up where I would go.
Well, that's where I've gone as well. But
yeah,
it's just
exactly that. I mean, I thought Palace were the biggest banker last game week to beat Southampton. Or Southampton, wasn't it? And yeah, absolutely stunk the place out. Luckily to score a goal in the last minute. I think it was in added time. And then look at this game. Like I said, Brighton had been flying, but then got absolutely thumped by Villa, which I didn't see coming, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, both of them in a bit of a down moment. Got to dust themselves off and go again. I, as we've just said, I can just see this being a draw. I can't really confidently say, even with Palace being at home, it's a derby. I think that these games are generally low scoring as well. It always seems to be edgy and cagey from my recent memory. So, yeah, I think this will be a low scoring draw.
Frantically scrubbing out my high scoring draw that I put down.
Have you?
I just think actually, in so many ways, they've both got a bit of a free hit at this. In the past, normally one of the teams has been possibly down the bottom. Maybe one eye over their shoulder, looking at relegation. This is a chance, I think, for both teams to bounce back from that disappointing result in midweek. And I actually think that there could be some really good stuff come out of the back of this game. If I'm honest, I think this could be quite an entertaining ding dong, because ultimately, like I say, both of them can have a free hit. If either of them lose, you're only losing bragging rights. You're not losing any kind of league status really. Both obviously Brighton, of course, looking up the table, but actually it's still a free hit. I think this could be quite entertaining personally.
It is just Brighton league wise that have got something to play with. Palace, especially after drawing with Southampton, had another couple of points on, they probably would be looking to press forward, but they are just being cut adrift from that upper end of the table, aren't they? Whereas Brighton are still in the hunt. Had 3 points and a few of them around them lose games. They're still in the hunt for that top 5, top 6. So it should mean more to Brighton. Obviously, it's a derby, so mean a lot to both of them, but it should mean more to Brighton from a table perspective. But yeah, Palace are a good side, so tough game to predict.
So I would say that the safe bet here is both teams to score. That's been pretty consistent. 4 of the last 5 meetings. The last 2 games, interestingly, Crystal Palace won 3-1 at Brighton, and Brighton then won 4-1. So actually, they are quite high-scoring games. The one before that was a 1-1 draw. So, certainly over 2 goals or 2 goals or more. The last 2 games have been a bit one-sided, actually, a bit lopsided. And I think, it would not surprise me if one of these teams won this game 3-1 or 4-1 either. It's just literally... finger in the air for me. Like, it could be anything, and actually, I think it could be the styles. Who can get out? Who's missing? Who's injured? Who's suspended? All that kind of good stuff can make the difference. And of course, the old-fashioned saying of who wants it most on the day. But for me, this is the perfect fixture for both of them.
Yeah, I was looking at Palace's game against Southampton and seeing what happened. I don't think Mateta had a very good game, so that might tell you where he is with his injury and his level of confidence. But they made 5 subs quite early, so it seemed to be a very poor performance. So they're going to have to massively turn that round. I think Brighton were, and it sounds strange when one drew 1-1, but Brighton lost 3-0. Probably had a better performance. I think we were a little bit unlucky against Villa, but yeah, they definitely need to dust themselves down against. Yeah, very interesting game. I just think very hard to beat. Like you said, it could go either way. It could be high scoring, but I think you have to be very brave to plump for one side.
Yeah, I watched Palace at the weekend and I thought Mateta looked miles off the pace. Again, whether it's... I'm not a mad fan of these headgear, if I'm honest. I get it, of course I get it, but it just looks like it's a bit prohibitive. It looks like, some horses can't race with the blinkers, and some can. It just looked like really clunky, and like these face... sort of, if it's a broken nose, that's sort of, they're now quite sort of fiberglassy and quite tight to your face, aren't they? This just looked really clumbersome and a bit, Quasimodo-esque, if I'm being honest. And I just thought that he looks a little bit tentative, which actually as a number 9 you can't afford to be, especially with the way he plays. He is an all-action kind of a guy.
Yeah, that's my thought. I think when you do have that sort of thing on, especially if you are nursing a knock, an injury, I think it does just make you that little bit hesitant. I think that's a great word, yeah. And when you're having to run in behind, be physical, nudging people around, especially him, he's a big old unit, isn't he? As part of his game, holding the ball up. I think it can just take that edge out of your game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But again, genuinely, I'm in terms of my £5 challenger banquet, I am staying well clear of this game, and I'm going with a draw just because I've got not a clue, albeit a slightly higher scoring draw than yourself. Spoke about it, touched about it. Probably the most important game of the weekend. Ipswich hosting Wolverhampton Wanderers at Portman Road, 3:00 on Saturday afternoon. Obviously, Ipswich and Wolves bouncing back with 2 good results this game week. Both of them getting a good win. Wolverhampton probably slightly more favourites in their game against West Ham than Ipswich were. But so let's start with Wolves, because actually that felt to me like a massive confidence boosting victory, both in terms of the connection with the manager and the fans and the players like Sky Sports, I thought was a little bit disingenuous where they came out with a sort of statement saying, is the manager the most expensive cheerleader in the Premier League because he was up and down the touchline giving it big licks. But as a fan, I want to see that in a big game and we're winning, and it's an important match. And they felt that victory kept them up this season. So why not get involved and be part of the process?
I think it's quite... if that was Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool, they'd be absolutely singing his praises. Yeah, that happens on Sky quite a lot. I'm going to call Wolves a smaller club. I don't mean that it's small, but the smaller clubs, they do get that sort of rhetoric, and I think it's bang out of order, to be honest. I think, and we're going off the topic here, but from what Sky presents some of the other teams to, the 14 other clubs in the league, I think it's a load of shit, to be honest. I'm getting a bit fed up with it, actually. It seems like the rules are made for the top 6. The commentary's all based on it. It is becoming a little bit boring, and I really dislike it. But no, personally, I'd love to see my manager doing that. backing the team, directing them what they need to do. It's what he's paid to do. And let's be honest, when he came in, nobody knew a lot about him. He's got the results that were needed. Wolves looked to be an absolute shoo-in under O'Neill to be going down, didn't they? So I think Wolves fans should be really pleased with the manager, the way that he's handled himself on and off the pitch, the selection, the way that they're playing. I think he's done an absolutely stellar job.
And obviously with Jurgen Strand-Larsen, they've actually got a centre forward that is probably arguably in the top sort of three in terms of form. He's up there, he scored 10 goals this season.
I like him.
He's done, all of a sudden, Cunha's not knocking out. I know he got a suspension and was.
Is he available this game week?
He must be by now, surely, goodness.
I don't think he was. I don't think he played in the previous game. I'll have a quick look and see if he's available. But I mean, that's will have a big factor on it, won't it? If he is available, plus Strand-Larsen is in form. I really like Strand-Larsen. He's a big odd unit. He's not slow. He does get on the end of things. He is big and heads the ball well, holds the ball up well. He took a little bit of time to adapt, but good signing. I think he's given them some attacking threat going forwards, which previously they've not had for a while.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that they've started to look like they've got a belief in the system, and like I say, I was really quite impressed with how they put together that. West Ham is not an easy team to beat. In and around you.
Sorry, Cunha's banned. He's available against Spurs.
How many games did he get?
I'm sure he got 3 or 4, but he's been out for 1, 2, 3. So this looks like it's going to be his 4th. So yeah, he's banned. It says suspended until 13th of April, which is Spurs.
Well, they've done well to kind of mitigate that as well as they have, haven't they? To be honest with you, because like you say, obviously they've now, that's now back-to-back wins. They've only lost 1 in 5, 7 points out of the last 3 games. They really have, albeit you would argue that you would expect them to, Everton, Southampton, and West Ham are teams that you'd expect them to beat, but nonetheless, earlier on in the season they weren't doing that. So they are 9 points clear. You touched on it earlier, and as we move on to that win, it does keep them just about clawing onto the Wolves' kind of coattails. But they must. If ever there's a must-win game this season, it sounds dramatic. This is a must-win game for Ipswich if they think they've got any chance of staying up.
It absolutely is a must-win. Even if they draw 9 points, you look at the form of both teams, and there's W's in the Wolves column, isn't there? They're picking up the odd win here and there. Like I said, they've gone back-to-back. I don't think Ipswich have ever gone back-to-back this season. Or if they have, it was at the beginning of the season. The recent form just suggests is they're not going to pick up 9 points. So they have to win this game. They have to go back-to-back probably for the first time this season. So must win, and if they don't, relegation sorted, done for another season. Boring.
But it could be a great game. Could be a really good game, and I actually think this could be, like I say, to go to Bournemouth, albeit Bournemouth have let's say tapered off rather than they've fallen off an absolute cliff, and it's almost like someone shot them in the back and they've just died and fallen off the edge. That's now no wins in 5, 1 point in 5.
I had a little gander on their Twitter and the replies, and so many Bournemouth fans were saying they wanted her early sacked.
Yeah, his stock has fallen as dramatically as
it risen.
Bournemouth season.
Yeah.
That they are now. And I find this really fascinating how some teams go through an injury crisis, and I think about Newcastle last season, massive injury crisis. You think about Man City this season, you think about Arsenal this season, and then of course the other two are Bournemouth and Spurs, and how some of those managers get absolutely battered for the injury crisis and others get nothing. And I find it fascinating how some clubs determine just by the style of play, well, it's the manager's fault because we're playing high press, high energy football. Yet another club that plays a different way, that the manager doesn't get any grief. And Irioli was getting, while they were winning games, was getting this look what you can do with an injured squad. Look what you can do. But eventually it catches up with you, and it looks like it now has caught up with Bournemouth. And actually, the other thing to add to this, by the way, sorry to be on a ramble here, is that people never ever factor in the "we know what you're doing now" factor. Like if at the start of the season, the overloads, the long ball with the like teams are now seeing that and they go, right, we're going to play a different way against you, Bournemouth, because we're not going to give you that space. Teams work teams out, and I think it's just a part of that is that teams now know what Bournemouth do, and Bournemouth will go and re-engage and find a different way of doing it.
Well, I saw Lewis Cook's been starting at right back, hasn't he? Which clearly is not a right back.
Nope.
And I've seen a bit of analysis to say teams are targeting that, and the goal the goal from Ipswich came as they basically lumped it over the right back, and Delap got on the end of it, and they created a move off it. So teams are starting to target that as well. They've not got a recognised right back. And Lewis Cook, who's a central midfielder, playing there, and that's a bit of Achilles' heel for them at the minute. But yeah, I agree. Teams are starting to work them out a bit. A couple of their players' form have dropped off. I mean, Cliver and Semenyo were literally single-handedly carrying the team, weren't they? They were the only star players that didn't get injured. Their form's dropped off, and along with it, so has Bournemouth's. I mean, I look at this and I think with the exception of the bottom three, I know they picked up some points, but West Ham are a team you want to be playing now, aren't they? They look dreadful, properly in transition, on the beach, waiting for the summer to get new signings, a new style implemented. Then they go, Bournemouth, they're a team you want to be playing. So again, I can't tell you which way this is going.
Well, so we're still at Ipswich Wolves, so we haven't even got there yet. So I kind of digressed us with that kind of piece, but you brought it back in nicely with Liam Delap. Now, just so you're aware, whenever I'm talking to my son about football, I still reference Rory Delap, not Liam Delap, by the way. So this is not just a midweek problem on a podcast. This is genuinely ingrained in my brain that we went for a walk.
Does he correct you?
Yeah.
Every time. Does he just go?
Oh. Literally, he's more frustrated than you get about it.
I don't get frustrated. I laugh every time. It's funny.
Well, he gets bloody frustrated. But, again, the rumour is that Liam has got a relegation release clause in his contract of 40 million quid, and there's vultures circling around him sort of massively in the expectation that they do go down. Out of all of this, he's the one player, isn't he, that's come out of the season looking like a Premier League player and will be in the Premier League. But if you can find a way of beating Wolves on Saturday, it would tee up the rest of the season for a little bit of jeopardy down the bottom there and could make it a little bit more exciting, if nothing else.
Yeah, like I said, they absolutely have to beat them, and I hope they do. It gives us a bit of interest in the relegation race, and also it'd be nice for if Ipswich can stay up, big if, just nice that the same three going up don't go back down.
And do you think the three that go down, assuming it's the three that are there, do you think they'll all keep their manager, none of them will keep their manager, or some of them will keep their manager? Because obviously, they're all at different stages of their evolution. But actually, the ones that have changed manager, if we're being honest, haven't really had the desired effect. And I've even seen today some people in the stratosphere talking about how Stevie Cooper would have done a better job than Ruud van Nistelrooy, as an example, if they'd have stuck with him. The Southampton change gave them a little bit of a boost, but actually, would they be better sticking with Russell Martin? So, do you think that they'll all stick? Do you think they'll change? Where do you think that'll go?
Well, first of all, I can't believe that Ruud van Nistelrooy hasn't been sacked. He's lost 7 games on the bounce, hasn't scored a goal. How on earth? I mean, the only reason he's not been sacked is because of FFP, which is a joke. I can't see Southampton sticking with the manager. I think they will make a change. I think that'll be Danny Roll, and that's probably signed, sealed, done, delivered from Chef Wednesday. I think he'll be brought into Southampton. Ipswich will want to stick with their manager. The question will be, will somebody else take him? So I don't think that'll be a case of them wanting to part company. I think he might just be taken by a bigger club if they do go down. But if nobody does come in, he will 100% be there. So I'm going to my guess will be 1 out of 3 will stay there, and it will be McKenna, but that's on the basis of him not being pinched.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, if I had to forgetting Southampton, I think Russell Martin would be a shout for Leicester or Ipswich if they went down and they lost their manager and changed.
I know that Russell Martin had been approached by Leicester before, so he'll definitely be on the list. But I don't think it's the right thing, because I believe that if you're going to go for a full reset at Leicester, you'll need a manager to build and take you back up. Martin has proved he can do that, but he's also proved that he's stunk the Premier League out. So you'd almost be getting him in for a season to then look. I'd be looking for a manager that's got potential and putting a bit of work behind them to then hope that they can do that in the Premier League. So, I mean, I would just go down a different route entirely. I wouldn't go down a bit of a tried, tested. I'd be looking to bring in somebody like a Lee Carsley. If I'm being honest, I think Lee Carsley would be a great shout for Leicester. Let him build in the Championship with a style of play and go from there.
But don't you think that's interesting? Because obviously Russell Martin did fail in the Premier League. But did he fail any harder than Vincent Kompany that went on to Bayern Munich? Like, to say that he hasn't learned from that experience and wouldn't be more open to a different way of playing in the Premier League, I think is maybe doing him. And obviously he was on Monday Night Football not long ago. But I just think, actually, sometimes you're better off picking a manager that's failed because they've learned, they've got the scars, they're going to want to prove the world wrong. They're going to want to come back and go, no, I can do it in this league. So I just think maybe we're writing some managers off because they have failed once before. When you look at Nuno, Nuno failed, and now success, and what a great season they're having. So I don't know. I just think maybe Russell Martin might get kind of pie-faced a little bit too quickly on that one for me.
Yeah, to me, I think there's an outstanding candidate, especially for the Leicester job I'm talking about, and that's Sean Dyche. He is a Kettering boy, so he's literally down the road from Leicester. He's from that area. Yes, people will moan about a style of play, but he gets the job done. Also, being able to build from the Championship, like what he did with the Burnley team.
Yeah.
Leicester should have a half-decent squad. They're going to have to sell some players going down, but they'll have a half-decent squad with a few good signings here and there. And, with some of the youth coming through as well, should have an half-decent team. And if you have Sean Dyche in charge, good manager who can get you organised, I think that's a perfect match. I understand the arguments of the style of play, but to me, the style of play element is going from the game. It's all about results and what you can build within the club. And Leicester need an identity and somebody to believe in, to get behind. And I think Sean Dyche is a perfect match for that. Whether or not that happens is a different question. But I mean, the outside shout for me is Lee Carsley. I think he would do a very similar job to Dyche, but with a better style of play. I personally would go for Lee Carsley.
Well, it's definitely, however this is cut, it's going to be a fascinating summer. I'm actually probably more excited about what happens in the summer than I am in the rest of the season, being honest, because I think when you look at the teams that need a complete overhaul, you think about the teams that need a new manager, you think about potential buyouts of clubs and teams. I think it's going to be a really interesting summer because so many teams have got so much work to do that I think, there's obviously the PSR stuff that we've still got to navigate our way around. I just wish I had a little bit more Chelsea in my thought process.
Let's have just 1 minute on that. That is an absolute disgrace, and it makes a mockery of the rules. You've got teams in the lower half that are literally penny pinching, almost getting fined every year because they can't keep up, and Chelsea just go and sell their women's team to themselves.
To themselves.
Tell me the rules are not made for the top teams to just continue to dominate.
Well, so ironically, I was speaking to a Chelsea fan just this very morning, and I actually referenced. So I get your point about the bottom half of the league, but actually the team that I referenced was Newcastle, because Newcastle have got all the money in the world, right? They're very well fed.
That's it. They're not a top six, though, are they? So it's completely
set. But they could be, and this season they're a massive club. If you talk about who could be Champions League football, Newcastle are in the mix, right? So I'm talking about a team that, if they were a little bit more inventive, could be out there signing some of the, like, with all due respect to a Southampton, even if they sell the women's team to the men's team for 150 million, they're not going to go and sign Isak with that money. I mean, they're going to be buying players within their sphere. Newcastle, if they were a little bit more imaginative, could go out and get some of the biggest players in the world based on their financial impact, their financial draw, and of course the size of the club. And then you get Chelsea, who just constantly are finding a new way to make the system look a mockery.
Honestly, I mean, I've already been completely turned off from the Premier League for quite a while now. The officials, like you said, the commentary, everything is based around top six. It's all the PSR things does my head in. So I've completely been turned off from it, and the excitement of the game. Like I said, there's the flares out the game, so I'm completely losing the love of watching football, I must be honest. And then when you hear that sort of thing, I just think, what is the point? What is the point for any team? Like, that's why Forest doing what they are is so nice to see. It's brilliant. Same with Villa previously. Like, I know they've spent some serious wedge as well, but like the teams that put it up to the big boys, you've got to give it their credit, because everything is set for them to go against them to ensure that doesn't happen. And how is that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I say, it's. I laughed very hard when I saw that news around selling the women's team. I thought that was let's call it a financial masterstroke. Very clever. Talking about teams that need financial masterstroke, we've already touched on both of them being on the beach. This could be quite an easy summary and probably quite a dull affair. Obviously, 3:00 at London Stadium, West Ham host Bournemouth. We've touched on Iriola's kind of stock falling. What do we think of Graham Potter? Like, he's been there long enough now. I don't really see, again, another manager change. I don't really see like a massive, wow, look at what they're doing now that Potter's in. This is a bit samey to me. I don't know.
I look at it very similar to Amorim at United, but without the scrutiny that Amorim gets. He's getting a complete free ride. They are dreadful. He should be under a lot more scrutiny, but I think the fans just go, wait for the season to finish, start from scratch. His tenure almost starts next year, if we're being honest. He's just going to have time to get used to the club, the players, and then the summer is going to be all on him. The scrutiny will be around him next season if it carries on like this. But if you were to just take it on face value of what you're getting now, it's dreadful. He should be under huge pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it just, like I say, obviously, I mean, I suppose, being honest with you, the kind of the Arsenal victory kind of papers over a whole bunch of crap, doesn't it, in terms of, a great day out, a great victory against the top club, clean sheet, and you've kind of upset the odds. And so then you look at that and you go, well, they've won 2 of their last 5, but, without being disrespectful to Leicester and Leicester fans, one of them was against Leicester, and actually they're just not scoring enough goals. Again, you kind of think back to like the David Moyes and like it was always about, West Ham used to be perceived as this free flowing, academy of football, home for the academy, and they're just not scoring any goals. Like they're actually, at the moment, if I had to pay to watch a team, Wolves or West Ham, I'd go and pay to watch Wolves.
Absolutely. And, Evan Ferguson was hailed as the £100 million player.
Jeez,
now, he hasn't played, has he? And I know he is finding his feet at West Ham, but he hasn't found any form, doesn't look to be a threat in front of goal whatsoever. He missed an absolute sitter last week as well. I mean, the only thing for him is they are safe. If they were in and around the relegation zone, he would be getting battered, and rightly so. It's just because everyone is of the understanding that he's inherited a squad which is dreadful in a style of play which is not his, and he's going to have to wait for a transfer window to turn that round. However, I still think questions should be asked is you should still be able to improve players that you've got, and it doesn't look like they're improving in any shape or form. The players that were good players, Kudus, Jared Bowen, Paquetá, look to be completely on the beach. They've not improved, not scoring goals. They're not a threat anymore. So I think questions should be asked. They won't be because of the reasons we just said. They are on the beach waiting for this summer.
Yeah, but again, these football clubs, we literally had a minute before we pressed the record button. Football clubs have to be really, really careful that your product is your team, your football. You'll always be the fan of the team that you support. You always will be, but at some point you're going to stop. There has to be a perceived value. If I'm going to spend 150 quid to take my son to watch my team, I need to be entertained. I need to go with the chance of thinking that we're going to win the game. I want to see exciting football. I want to see chances. I want goal mouth action. And at the moment, West Ham are another one of those. It's not cheap to go and watch West Ham. They've got a big old stadium. So at the moment, they're still just about clinging on to filling it. But if it carries on like this, that drops down to 30, 35, 40,000. You're going to see big gaps in that stand. But they're not going to keep paying it because everything's so expensive now. Football clubs really, really have to be careful that they don't lose the punter's pound.
I think there's a real thing starting to happen around ownership and how the clubs are being run. You're starting to see more protests. I think the actual good owners and how the club is run could probably in the Premier League be counted on one hand.
You said that, yeah.
And I think it's starting to become more relevant and in view. Like I said, there's so many protests. I mean, I just look at Man City. Everyone thought they were a good club. You hear some of the things that are going on. I mean, even just the 115 charge thing, like they're not ran well. Yes, they've won things, so again, it papers over the cracks. But I don't think there's that many clubs in the league that are ran well. And surely it can't be hard. And it's about people, isn't it? It's about getting good people into positions to run clubs. It's not hard. It really isn't hard. Get good people, invest in people, and get them doing the correct things that the fans want to see, because the fans are the lifeblood. They're the ones that pump money into your club, which make it survive and grow and flourish. So, to me, it really isn't hard. I just think it's becoming more and more relevant that you're seeing so many clubs that are ran poorly.
Yeah, absolutely. And West Ham, I would put very high. Ironically, I wouldn't put Bournemouth anywhere near that list. I think that Bournemouth are doing pretty well, to be fair. And actually, as much as their season has tapered off, shall we say, putting it politely, for Bournemouth to be where they are at this stage of the season, you would have taken at the start of the season.
They're Bournemouth. They're punching well above the weight. It's
a great, it's just unfortunate the way it's ended. And they will, Kirksey, they're talking about 45 million going to Liverpool. Like, they will make the money back and some of the players they've bought, which shows they will, and they'll reinvest that as you've already rightly mentioned loads of times, they're buying a left back in January that no one's heard of to replace the left back they're selling in the summer.
Yeah.
They're ahead of the curve. They know what's going on. West Ham are, for me, have been for years. I mean, I remember the fans climbing up the balcony to get to the owners a couple of years ago. I think when they were playing Burnley, I think they lost to Burnley. I feel like, like it feels like it's been going on for years and years. And we gave them this little bit of a grace over the last summer going they won the transfer window. You definitely didn't. And actually, if you think about the players they signed last summer, I can't think of any of them that got a resale value.
Trying to think if there is there's one, isn't there? I think, and that's Wan-Bissaka.
He's been right, to be fair.
I think he's the only one. I think that was a great bit of business. He is the one that they could sell for more. I've heard people saying he should be in the England squad. I agree with that, if I'm being nice. I think he gives you he should be in the English squad as a different right back as opposed to what we've got. If you've got someone like Mbappe on the wing, you play Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah, I mean, as we all know, we've got a plethora of right backs, haven't we? To make, I wouldn't want to be a right back. If I'm being honest with you, I'd want to be almost any other position for England at the moment, with so many right backs out there. But Wan-Bissaka would be an interesting one if he came on the market. But the rest of them have been well below par. And like you say, to be this on the beach this early, 8 games left. If I was a West Ham fan, I would be sticking at home and waiting for the highlights.
Do you know what that says, though? To be on the beach this early shows you how poor the league is, that they are safe, doesn't it, really? Because they've been stinking the place out, and they're 16 points clear, something like that? Something ridiculous?
Is it 16 points? I suppose, 30. I think they're on 34.
Yeah, I mean, I've literally just plucked that number off the top of my head without looking.
They're 14 points clear of Ipswich, 14 points clear of Ipswich.
14 points clear. Like, it just shows you how poor the teams that have come up actually are.
Yeah, no, don't disagree, mate. We move on to what it will be an interesting game. Neither of these teams are on the beach. In fact, far from it. We go to Villa Park, Aston Villa off the back of their impressive victory up against Nottingham Forest off the back of their impressive victory. 5:30 kickoff live on Sky Sports. This is fascinating for me, both in terms of styles, both in terms of the pace they've both got up front. Obviously, Nottingham Forest has been missing a couple of key players in the last couple of games, but this for me is a very, very difficult game to call. This could go either way.
Yeah, I think that phrase you could use for half of the fixtures we've already said.
Yeah, sure.
Tough game week. This is a tough game to call. I would be, if I had to pick one, I'd probably going for Forest because it means more to them. They're not a distraction of a Champions League tie like Villa have. Although I didn't think Villa would beat Brighton, so and Rashford and others have come into form. So yeah, very interesting game. I can see this being low scoring. Forest are defensively rock solid. If you've not got defenders in your fantasy, what are you doing? I would just edge Forest if I had to pick. I don't know about you.
Well, when you started that percent, if I had to pick, you do have to pick at some point, by the way, so that you can't get out of that. You're not allowed to use a get out of jail free card. I think what's interesting about this for me is that I'd like to reference the transfer window that Aston Villa had in January. And if you look at the players, and all 3 of them scored last night, interestingly, and actually the impact that's had on their season, because Aston Villa were starting to stutter a little bit, like we spoke about many times on here, about how they don't tend to do well after a Champions League game. But actually, Rashford, Asensio, and Mullen have come in and added a little bit of variety to their attack. It means that they can rest other players. The pressure on Ollie Watkins feels like it's been reduced. Obviously, they sold John Duran for all of that money. But actually, the 3 that have come in have made an impact. And it just goes to show that those teams that didn't do much in January possibly have missed a trick.
And also teams previously gunning for Champions League and missing out. This is what you do in January to bolster the ranks. You have to strengthen the squad because everyone else around you does. And what you do is you go and get 3 players of quality. You don't go and sign 5 or 6 players just to boost the numbers. You get people to increase your starting 11, which is exactly what they've done with Asensio and Rashford. And you can see it's paying off. 40 million for Rashford in the summer window is a bargain if he plays the way that he's looking like his form's improving. 40 million is a great deal.
Yeah, I must admit, I did look at his finish last night, thinking, he's kind of, I know Ozil used to kind of smash it into the ground to bounce it over the keeper as an actual technique. For me, it didn't look like a confident finish. If that makes sense. Like it kind of looked like a scuffle, and it went in, thankfully. But they're talking about coming back to confidence. I'm not sure he's there fully yet, but he's definitely showing signs of of at least being a productive player and having output again.
He's showing signs of improving, isn't he? And I agree with you. It didn't look the finish of somebody who's in top form and with top confidence, but the fact it went in is going to boost his confidence even more, isn't it? So, yeah, I mean, I think you'll start to see him. I'd like to see him go through the gears. And he gets written off a lot and he gets a lot of stick, but everyone, I would say, generally wants him to play well. It's just the fact that
Of
some of
course.
the things you hear about and you go, oh, what's going on, considering the level he was at. But I don't think anyone wants him to fail. So good luck to him. I hope he smashes it.
Yeah, I don't pay any attention to any of the noise. Like, if he was, doing drugs or beating people up, whatever, different. But if you don't like what he does in his private life, couldn't care less. Like, if you're not breaking any laws, if you're not like, it's very difficult being a professional football player, having the spotlight on him from as young as I think he made his debut at 17. Scoring goals since then. For me, to be any kind of balanced individual with all of that money and all that attention in the biggest club in the world, or one of the biggest clubs in the world, is a difficult ask. I just want to see him playing football and enjoying himself with a smile on his face, because actually, if he's doing that, good stuff's happening at home, good stuff's happening on the pitch. And guess what? Good stuff happens for England as well. And actually, do you know what? I want Marcus Rashford back for England, doing what he's done in the past, scoring goals, being a threat coming in off that left-hand side, because I want England to win the lot. So for me, this is a great, I want England to have more and more options because players are on form. And Marcus Rashford plays a big part of that moving forward, hopefully.
That's exactly where I am with it. The more Marcus Rashford is in form, the better options England have and more likely to win a tournament. So I think, like we said before, when it happened, we thought it was a great move. The manager that he's chosen to take charge of the next part of his career is probably the best manager in the world that you would have wanted to pick. So good, I think for a change, good career decision from Rashford, and hopefully he flourishes.
And on the other side of this, they're in the FA Cup semi-final. They just seem to beat teams week in, week out. Can we put a line under it and call Nuno Espirito Santos manager of the year?
I tweeted something to say he's going close. I don't think that you're going to be able to rip that title from Slot. I think, with him winning the Premier League, he's bound to win it, and he probably deserves it. But I think it's a bigger achievement what Nuno has done with Forest than what Slot's going to do with Liverpool. I just don't think he will win it. But for me, I mean, if we were to give the award out, I would give it to Nuno, 100%. I think it's a far better achievement from what he's achieved. Hopefully, let's say they make the top four and, let's don't even win the FA Cup, get as far as they have. I think that's a better achievement.
But let's roll that out. Let's say they win the FA Cup, because there's no team left in there that they should be scared of. Obviously, Manchester City are a great team, but Nottingham Forest, in the form they're in, should be scared of playing Manchester City. They win the FA Cup and they finish second. Let's go third. They finish third. That for me is far more impressive than what Liverpool have done, in my humble opinion. Far more impressive with a less talented squad.
Well, if you look at most, outlets, predictions, beginning of the year, Forest were in a relegation battle. They're battling to be second and could win a trophy. And it's with a manager that was being ridiculed. So they've got a forward who's been in the form of his life, who's never been really of Premier League quality or top-end quality at least. What he's done there is absolutely phenomenal. They've not spent masses of money this season anyway. I can't see how it's not a better achievement. I understand, what Slot has done with Liverpool. Again, nobody expected them to win the league, but you look at the core nucleus of the team that Klopp left, it's world-class players in there. I don't think Forest have got a single world-class player. So, to me, that screams that it's a better achievement.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, for me, it's a no-brainer. I'd be, if I had a vote, which I don't, I'd be all in Nuno. I think it's absolutely different class. I think it's a phenomenon, and I think what he's doing for that area, what he's doing for the team is absolutely off the charts. And I would be all in on him winning Manager of the Year personally. Either way, whatever happens, and if we know some Nottingham Forest fans, where we work and where we are, and they're absolutely buzzing as they should be, and it's great to see. And like I say, I'm really excited for what they can do for the rest of the season. And I would absolutely be delighted if they were to go on to win a trophy, and the FA Cup would be a team of that historical standing of Nottingham Forest, respected the FA Cup, played the big boys all the way through, got there the hard way. I think there are 3 penalty shootouts this season to get through. It's only 2, 3.
Three.
Yeah, Good luck to him. So we move on to Sunday, where there's lots of games this Sunday, which is bizarre for a week where there wasn't any European football, but of course there was midweek fixtures. London Derby starts at the G-Tech Community Stadium. Brentford host Chelsea. I'm going to go a little bit left field and tell you straight away that I've got Brentford down to win this one.
Have you? I haven't.
End of story. No, I just think that this is one of them games that Brentford, Chelsea, they'll beat Spurs because that's what they do. But Chelsea aren't in great form. They are getting some players back, but this just feels to me like systems and styles suit styles, and I just feel that Brentford are one of the teams that could really cause the way that Chelsea set up some problems. And I think that Brentford could just about have enough to nick this one.
I think the interesting thing for me will be today's game, Chelsea-Spurs, to see how the outcome of that. Now, I expect Chelsea to win, and I think that will give them enough confidence. And also, I'm interested to see how Palmer and to see if Jackson's back, those sorts of things. And if they look like they're functioning again, I think they'll have too much for Brentford. My answer could change depending on tonight's result and performance, though. But from how I envisage it to go, I think Chelsea might just have a little bit too much. But I think it should be a good game. I think the styles will blend nicely.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this last week when we sort of spoke about Newcastle having like a really awkward, horrible game, after the parade, in Brentford, and it proved to be exactly that, a difficult game. Brentford probably didn't deserve to get much over, but it did take a wonder goal from Tonali to get Newcastle over the line. So Brentford are a tough challenge for anybody, and I think at home as well, London Derby. I just think that Chelsea for me are almost impossible to know what they're going to do next, and it wouldn't surprise me they went and beat Man City 3-0 and then lost to Fulham 3-0. They're all over the place, and I don't really feel like they've progressed in the year since Poch was there this time last year. In fact, arguably they were more consistent this time last year under Poch. I think Chelsea are another team that are a little bit in limbo, really.
Yeah, they are strange. Like, I think when you look at the squad, you go, this should be beating Brentford. But like you said, they are so up and down, very inconsistent. I think that international break would have done Palmer the world of good, though. I'd imagine he'd have got a good 2 weeks rest into him, and he might come back into a bit of zip and form. So that's where my head is with it, and why I've plumped for Chelsea. But I mean, if I don't see any spark from Palmer against Spurs, I think it's going to be difficult for them. Brentford are a good side and they score goals. Johan Visser is a threat, and Bremo is a threat, and they can definitely cause the Chelsea backline problems.
Yeah, again, I see them causing them problems with set pieces. I see them causing problems in open play. Obviously, 3-5-2 to 5-3-2 does cause teams, a couple of challenges. Chelsea very set in the way, so I think that's going to be a very interesting way to start sort of Sunday's matches off. And of course, Chelsea could still be in the top four if they do beat Spurs tonight, like you've said, which of course they will do. So again, it's a massive game for Chelsea, even though it does feel like they are sort of floating. They're clearly not on the beach, but they feel like one of the teams that are. It makes sense. It's really weird that Chelsea are there or thereabouts, but doesn't really feel like it's all cylinders.
No, but when they are on all cylinders, they're a good side, aren't they? But it doesn't happen, apart from the beginning of the season. It's not happened very often, which I think is the Palmer effect. When he is on song, he does dictate the game, as in not the tempo of the game, but he has big involvements in the game. And he hasn't been that player, has he, for 8 to 10 games? So I think he is the key to this. And my head is just that the international break will have done him good. So interested to see what happens tonight. But they're very, very inconsistent. So I don't put them into a £5 challenge very often.
No, absolutely not. Oh, no. And of course, I won't be this week because I've told you I'm going for Brentford, so that would be a little bit skew with. Another team that's inconsistent across London now, 2 o'clock. In fact, there's 3 kickoffs in London at 2 o'clock, which is a little bit unusual. But Fulham host Liverpool at Craven Cottage. Again, Fulham could be anything. So really, this is that game now for Liverpool, hopefully to sort of, in their eyes, get back with someone that's not going to low block them to death, going to come out and play a little bit of football. Obviously, the win would get them right bang on the cusp of winning the league. And so this is a massive game for Liverpool, and Fulham, starting to drift now. They're, again, that kind of perfect opposite attracts where they lose one, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. They are due in that theory to win one, but this is going to be too much for them, surely.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty straightforward Liverpool win. I think that win against Everton will have got Liverpool's focus back exactly where they need to be. They've been dumped out of 2 cup competitions, and I think that will have got it out of their mind. Fulham, like you said, are very inconsistent, but I can just see their fluidity and style of play playing into Liverpool's hands.
Yeah, when you look at the teams that Fulham are beating, they're beating teams that you would expect them to beat, and they're losing against teams you'd expect to lose to. Losing to Arsenal, losing to Brighton at the time, and losing to Palace, and then they beat Wolves and Spurs. So, they are beating teams that you'd expect them to beat in the current form, but losing it. So for me, and of course Liverpool are one of the form teams. They've only dropped 2 points out of the last 5 games, won the last 4. Of course, got all to play for. And again, of course, we're going to want to get across the line as early as possible. I see nothing other than an away winning this one for me.
Yep, I agree entirely, and I think it'll be pretty comfortable, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I've got a feeling this one could be to nil. Although having said that, Liverpool are struggling at right back. I thought Curtis Jones did a pretty solid job last night, but obviously
He did it right, didn't he?
Nowhere near the levels of the two that go in front of him. And of course, there's been no further news on those transfers. But it does every week that goes past for me gives me the heebie-jeebies that they're going to lose all 3 of them. Because actually, there was even a little bit of a rumour late last week. And again, there's a Liverpool fan that lives opposite me who's starting to get. By the way, he didn't care that Trent's going. He's happy that he's going. He doesn't rate him as a player. He was actually delighted, but he's worried that Van Dijk's going to follow him to Real Madrid.
Did you see the rumour that Salah's due to sign a contract extension? That came out today to say that it looks like Salah's likely to sign a contract extension now, and that's the Trent money being spent already, isn't it? Which, I mean, I'd be surprised if Van Dijk goes. I expect him to stay. I think him out of the 3 of them was the most likely to stay.
I've got to be honest. I think Salah's looking a little bit top. I don't know if "tie" is the right word, but he didn't look at it last night again. I know he's had a phenomenal season, but I just wonder whether he's been. He's played most minutes of most games, and of course I was paying close attention because I had him in a 3 striker to score bet last night. And he was the only one that didn't come in, and of course then even with the sub, I was thinking it's okay if you sub him off, and then they subbed him off for Endo. I was like, oh, thanks.
Cheers.
At least give me Gakpo, who was already on the pitch. But yeah, Salah looked a bit tired to me. But again, off the back of the season, you just got to keep him. You just have to keep Mo Salah.
Yeah, 100%. I said he probably could, like you said, just do with the rest. He's one they've rotated quite well. He's one that they just haven't rotated. He's played every minute of every game. Like I said, he does look knackered. If they can get this league done and dusted, they might give him a little bit of a rest.
Yeah, 44 goal involvements is absolutely crazy numbers for Mo Salah. 27 goals, 17 assists. That would take some beating, in the coming years. And like you say, whatever he wants, I would be paying it, to be honest with you, because you're not going to be able to replace him. But I would still be looking for a replacement. Do the Bournemouth method of trying to get some replacements in, because actually, Diego Jota, Gakpo, Diaz, they all seem to be stuttering a little bit at the same time. They haven't got that kind of consistent number 9 either. So for me, Liverpool do need to have a little bit of a rejig up there, but I would want Mo Salah to be part of it for sure.
Yeah, no, agreed. And they said, like we said last week, just buys them time, doesn't it? That's what they need. They need a bit of time rather than a full rebuild in the summer.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, exactly right. So we move to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium where Spurs play Southampton. All logic says this is a Spurs win, but when it comes to Spurs and logic, you have to throw it out the window. So this actually is a chance for Southampton to get 3 points on the board.
Yeah, you'd have to say it is. Dr. Spurs, Dr. Tottenham, whatever it is. All logic screams Tottenham win, doesn't it? However, Tottenham have nothing to play for, with the exception of the Europa League, so the league is done and dusted. Southampton do have something to play for. They are trying their best to avoid the record low points total. So I think this is a great shout for your Sky Bet freeze option with Southampton, even for them to score first, because they will be going for this. They've got nothing to lose. They're already down. Spurs will probably be resting a few players here and there, looking after a few injured players. So, I mean, for me, I still can't see Tottenham losing, but I think Southampton have a great chance in this.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I think it's going to be a very, very open game. I think they could easily see over 2.5 goals. I think, and for me, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I think, Spurs will definitely have one eye on the Frankfurt game, which is a very, very difficult game on Thursday night. Obviously, the pressure will build on Postecoglou if they lose against Chelsea. If they lost against Chelsea and against Southampton, the rumours coming out now are growing by the hour that Spurs are thinking of replacing Postecoglou in the summer. And I think if they did manage to lose to Southampton based on their form against the other teams around the bottom of the league, including Ipswich and Leicester, I think that would be a really, really bad look for him. And for that reason alone, Spurs can't really afford to take their foot off the gas. But I can genuinely see Southampton going ahead in the game.
I can as well, and I've just checked the 6-1, which is I
Right.
think is a very, very good bet to put them in your 5-fold ACCA, and if they score first, freeze them, and you get 6-1. So yeah. I think that's a great bet.
Very interesting. I guess normally in any normal season, the biggest game of the weekend would have been Manchester United, Manchester City, but we've kind of gone elsewhere. It is the 4:30 kickoff on Sunday. Obviously, Manchester City still pushing towards that Champions League space, and Manchester United will be looking to do everything they can to make that as difficult for them as possible. Right? That's really all we're playing for here now, isn't it? Is almost Manchester United, obviously bragging rights, but actually trying to stop from Manchester City. Because again, you look at Chelsea. If Chelsea was to beat Spurs and Brentford, that would put them quite a distance above Manchester City. Some of the other teams around them, Newcastle, that we're going to come on to, you'd expect them to pick up 3 points as well. So actually, this could be a big game for Manchester City if they were to lose it in that race for the top four.
Yeah, it is a big game for them in that sense. I mean, me and you spoke the other day to say I wouldn't be backing Man City in any £5 challenges just because of how poor, inconsistent they are. With the exception of last week when they were playing Leicester. But you'd have to, obviously they're favourites for this game, but I confidently, Man U do pick up their game against the bigger teams. They do. So I wouldn't be very confident to pick Man City in this game. I think they'll win, but I'm not putting them in my £5 challenge. I don't think they're consistent enough this season to be able to warrant that.
See, ironically, I agree with everything you said, but I have put them in my £5 challenge.
You have, yeah. Well, the thing is, though, they're decent odds, though, to reflect you add them in, and they are quite decent odds. I'm not going to risk them. I just think they're so inconsistent, and United do pick up their game in the bigger games.
Yeah, I just think that actually Manchester United don't look like scoring at all. And I just think that for me, actually, this will be one of those games that you can win without being at your best. I know that Manchester United are going to huff and puff, but there was the stat that Harry Maguire created 0.6 XG in 5 minutes compared to Rasmus Højlund's 0.3 in the last 9 games, whatever it was. And so, and again, it was no surprise to me that the Nottingham Forest Manchester United game ended under 2.5 goals, 2-0. They just look powder puff. I just don't see how Manchester United score unless, of course, they do something. Now, don't get me wrong, Manchester United play much better football. They look like they're starting to understand the system better. They look, more defensively sound, but they just, I think if they were still out on the pitch now, they wouldn't have scored against Nottingham Forest.
No, I agree. And, I saw a lot of people giving Bruno his praise again, but after the game, nobody seemed to say a word after he blanked again. So, no, I agree with you entirely. I just can't back Man City with how many times they've let me down this season when you think they're going to go and be Man City. But yeah, they should win, shouldn't they? They should win, let's be honest.
So, but let me ask you a different question on this game. Like, obviously, in the last sort of 15 years, this would be one of the games that I would kind of cancel plans for to sit down in front of the telly and watch. Obviously, both with either up and coming and biggest teams in the country. So, are you going to be, kind of shutting your phone off and watching this game, or is this going to happen in the background? And you're going to get on with your life?
I won't be watching it. Well, if I'm around, I'll have it on the telly, but I won't be changing my plans to go and watch it. This has no bearing on. I'd much sooner watch Ipswich Wolves than Man U, Man City. And I know different days, different times of things, but this game is not what it used to be. It used to be a game, like you said, you would make sure you were in the house to watch it or you're out to go and watch it. Not for me.
Interesting. Final match of the week. Feels like there's loads of games. I know there's only 10, but it feels like there's been more this week. Monday Night Football at the King Power. They probably should remove the word power because there's no power in Leicester at the moment. Leicester host Newcastle. I've got a feeling, Fran, that you're going to go Newcastle to win, more shots on target, to win to nil, more corners, Leicester more yellow cards.
Very similar. So my banker of the week is Newcastle to win, Newcastle most shots on target, Newcastle most corners, 2-1. That is an absolute banker. Genuinely. Leicester had one shot against Man City, and I know Man City are a good side. Their XG was 0.02. They didn't have a corner, I don't think. How on earth are you getting 2-1 on Newcastle, who are confidence is through the roof at the minute, having what a part of that bet is going to lose? Because it certainly isn't the shots. It certainly isn't Newcastle winning the game. 2-1 is a great bet.
And of course, Newcastle, with that game in hand over Manchester City, if they were to win, would put them right bang in that mix. Now, of course, we keep talking about that there will be 5, but Chelsea could easily stick 6 points on there by Monday night. If Newcastle were to win this game as well, it really could be all eyes purely and simply on this race for the top 5, couldn't it? Because actually, there's not a lot else to talk about. And Newcastle have. I was actually quite impressed that they came back with the win last night, because thinking of all of the emotion of the parade Saturday, the emotion of winning the cup, but to have a workmanlike professional performance, I thought was actually a really good sign for them for the rest of the season.
Definitely. And if you wanted a game to then back up that result, you'd pick Leicester at the minute. So it's a guaranteed 3 points. It is a massive opportunity them to rack up some goals and get that goal difference, in a really positive for them as well. Isak should be eyeing this game up, because I don't know how far away he is from the Golden Boot or if he's anywhere near it, but this is a real opportunity for him to put some goals on his tally this season as well. I just can't see. I said that 2-1. Honestly, £100 on it, banker.
He is. Please gamble carefully. He is on 20 goals, 7 behind Salah, so nowhere near. And look, what I will say though, what I will say is that I know that we kind of half tongue in cheek, but you're not, because I know that you have done quite well out of that side type of bet with Leicester this season. Is that they're not getting regularly tanked, and I suppose what's your definition of tank? Because you could say, well, Rich, they lost 3-0 to Manchester United, they lost 4-0 to Brentford, but 1-0 to Chelsea, 2-0 to West Ham, 2-0 to Manchester City. So they are losing to 0, but they're not losing 5-0, 6-0.
Common denominator, though, is they're getting tanked throughout, as in, when you look at the score lines, 1-0 or 2-0 here and there, Leicester aren't in any of those games, though.
No.
Leicester, they had one shot against Man City, and it was a 30-yarder that nearly hit the corner flag. An XG of 0.02. I look at Southampton and I look at Ipswich. They're still having the ball created. They're creating opportunities. They're just not good enough. Leicester have no style of play. They have no hope. Genuinely, you go in the ground, you can hear the fans. Watch what happens when if Leicester next score a goal. That's how bad it is. If Leicester next score a goal, you listen to there'll be a sarcastic applause around the ground. It won't be, celebrating. It will be, oh my God, it's only taken 14 games. That's how bad it is at the minute. There's no hope. How Van Nistelrooy still has a job, I don't know. I still believe Cooper. We talked about Cooper earlier. It was the right thing to do to sack Cooper, but it wasn't the right thing to employ Van Nistelrooy.
No, we touched on this the other week. Van Nistelrooy should have stayed at Manchester United at the end of the season, because that was working nicely. Amram should have come in the summer, and Leicester should have gone elsewhere. That was it felt pretty simple at the time, to be fair as well. But
yeah, even just on the style of play though. So they've gone from Maresca to Cooper to Van Nistelrooy. So you've gone keeping the ball, counter-attacking, keeping the ball. But all of your transfer budget, Cooper used up for style of play, and then they've gone to another different style of play manager. So I do feel for Van Nistelrooy a little bit, because he's been sold down the river with the transfers and everything. He's been allowed to bring in one player. However, he hasn't improved any player at all. If anything, they've gone backwards. How he's got a job, I don't know. What Leicester do from here, I don't know. But how they even deal with Newcastle, I genuinely fear this could be. I know we normally go 5-0 on some teams and it ends up being 2 or 3-0. I think Newcastle when they do go, are ruthless. I think they could put 5-6 here quite easily.
Well, let's get to it. Let's find out where we go. So we go right way back to the start. Everton host Arsenal at Goodison Park, 12:30 kickoff. You think the score will be?
Everton 0, Arsenal 2.
I've gone Everton 0, Arsenal 1. Crystal Palace host Brighton in the derby at Selhurst Park, 3 p.m. kickoff. You think the score will be?
1-1.
I've gone Desmond 2-2. So we're both on track for our predictions in terms of where we think it's going, but just slight variation on the scores. Ipswich at Portman Road at 3 o'clock on Saturday. One of the games of the weekend. Host Wolverhampton Wanderers. The score will be?
Ipswich 1, Wolves 2.
That's what I've done. Exactly the same. we go to the London Stadium where West Ham host Bournemouth, 3 p.m. still. You think the score will be?
1-1.
Oi! 1-1. Exactly the same. Saturday night
Was that Aston
football.
being tackled? Was that Aston being tackled there? Oi!
Yeah, no, just scored. God, got 2 weeks. Well, this is going to be a painful summer, mate. GCSE, so he's going to be off for a long time. So you might have a third wheel on this for quite a while. Got to find something to do with the nugget. Aston Villa. Talking of Aston Villa. Saturday night, 5:30. Nottingham Forest, Villa Park. You think the score will be?
1-1.
Yeah, I've got 1-1 as well. Well, that's three on the spin, Frank. I think the next one's definitely different because we've gone for different outcomes. So G-Tech Community Stadium, Brentford host Chelsea, 2 p.m. kick-off on Sunday. You've gone for?
1-2.
I've gone for exactly the opposite, 2-1. I've just got a feeling that Brentford are going to do that one. Fulham at Craven Cottage host Liverpool live on Sky Sports, 2 p.m. kick-off. The score will be?
Fulham 0, Liverpool 2.
Exactly the same. Yep, that's 4 exactly the same, Fran. I've made a note. We're going to need to have a look at what this looks like. Spurs host Southampton at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So crap they can't even get a sponsor for their stadium. We both think that Southampton are going to score, but is it going to be enough to win? So what have you got them down as?
I'm going for Southampton to score first, but to lose 2-1.
I also have 2-1 locked in, Fran. This is getting scary for a difficult game week. We're very similar. I think the next one will be different though. Manchester United at Old Trafford host Manchester City. 4:30 kickoff on Sky Sports. The score will be?
Man U 0, Man City 2.
Oh, so not massively. I've gone for 1-3. I do see Manchester United finally scoring. I think this could be quite an open game where there's a little bit of freedom. I think Pep will get his mojo back. So I've gone 1-3. And then this is literally just a case of how many goals we put in for Newcastle, because we can both safely put 0 next to Leicester. However, it's 8 o'clock kickoff at the King Power Stadium. You've gone for Leicester 0, Newcastle
5.
Oh, too high. 3-0 to Leicester, Liverpool.
I did have
Newcastle.
3, but then as I was talking about it, I've changed it to 5 because now the more I was talking about it, the more I was thinking this is going to be bad. So I did have 3 written down, but I'm sticking with my 5 because I believe it's going to be dreadful.
Right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are exactly the same. So we'll have to have a look at what that looks like. So for your £5 challenge, you've gone 4.
Nothing too major. So I know I've put Chelsea in just because I think they will win. Liverpool, and then I've had Newcastle and over 1 goal scored, and that pays £32.84.
So I've gone a little bit more ambitious. I've gone for a 4-fold. So my £5 returns £63.29. I've gone for Wolves to beat Ipswich, Liverpool to beat Fulham, Manchester City to beat Man United at better than evens, and Newcastle to beat Leicester. I feel like that's worth a fiver to return nearly £64. That feels like a nice return if that comes in. Of course, having said that, it's been on while since one out, so I might as well just give a fiver to Stranger again. Have you got a question this week, Fran? I know last week you posed a question. I don't know how that went, but have you got a question for us this week?
Yeah, it went all right actually. I do have one, and it's just off the back of the James Tarkowski tackle yesterday. So I thought I'd do something on yellow cards. So I think I've seen the stat flying around, but the James Tarkowski is now the record holder of receiving the most yellow cards without being shown a red card in the Premier League, but he's gone joint top with somebody. So who is the other person?
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's going to be some central midfielder, I'm sure of it. No idea off the top of my head. Fran, we've gone a little bit.
Would you like to know? Give you it now.
Go on in.
It's Oriol Romeu.
Romeu,
whatever his name was.
CDM. It's always going to be. It was going to be a random one like
James
that.
James Tarkowski has equalled that record. Do you know how many yellow cards that they've both received without being sent off?
15.
63.
Jesus Christ, each.
Yeah. 63 yellow cards each that they have both
Wow.
received without ever being sent off.
That's a lot of £12 fines.
Massive fine for a Premier League footballer.
Same price. The same price. Right, where can people find us? Where can people reach out and touch us? Obviously, I know there's Twitter, all that stuff that I'm not on, but yeah, where can they find us?
Yeah, so we're on Twitter and X, we're on Facebook, and we're on TikTok on social media front. So the Twitter handle and everything, or the social media handle is at TAIE podcast. You can reach out to us, reply to any of our tweets. We put quite a lot out there. DM us if you want to come on, be a guest. And to listen to the episodes, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.
Awesome work, buddy. As always, my favourite hour and a bit of the week. Thank you very much, buddy. Look forward to speaking to you next week. Have a good one.